My boss smirked when I gave my 2 weeks notice and said, "You'll be sorry, you'll never get anything better." 3 months later I ran into him at a conference where I was on stage as a director at his biggest rival making 3 times what he ever paid me. When he tried to speak, I just said, "You're right, I do have regrets, I regret not leaving your awful company 2 years earlier." He turned and walked away without saying a word. I tried to be the good son, the peacemaker, for decades. But the moment my own brother started stealing my words, my achievements, to build his fake empire, I knew I had a choice: disappear, or finally fight back. I was 28, and walking away felt like cutting off a limb. Not from my job, not entirely, but from this suffocating family dynamic that had been a weight on my chest my whole adult life. For years, I was Liam, the oldest son who just wanted to keep the peace, be the responsible one, always showing up for everyone else, even when no one seemed to show up for me. You know the type. I had a decent job, mid-sized tech firm. Stable, solid pay, a dangling carrot of growth that kept you loyal while slowly draining your soul. I probably would have stayed, kept grinding, kept playing their game, if one single conversation hadn't flipped my entire world upside down. But to truly get it, to understand why that moment hit so hard, you need to understand where I came from. My family was all about appearances. My dad, a small-town lawyer, always sharp, a firm handshake, a story ready. My mom, hosting book clubs with wine that cost more than our weekly groceries, just to impress her friends. And then there was Caleb, my younger brother. Golden boy, family favorite, a professional gaslighter in a varsity jacket. Caleb was 3 years younger, but from high school on, the world revolved around him. Straight A's, football captain, early acceptance to a top-tier college. I was the quiet one, average grades, good at fixing things, but mostly just invisible. When I landed my first job out of college, my parents barely acknowledged it. But when Caleb got an internship at some startup with a ping-pong table and an edgy name, my mom threw a dinner party. It wasn't outright cruelty, not at first. Just these little cuts. My dad introducing Caleb to colleagues as the real star. My mom brushing off my job as something Liam's doing until he finds his path. Caleb calling me boring, responsible Liam, like it was an affectionate nickname. I laughed it off for years, told myself they didn't mean anything by it. But hear something enough times, and it starts to stick. By 27, I was a senior analyst at my tech firm. Not a six-figure salary or running departments, but I had a team, successful projects, a decent industry reputation. Yet, every holiday dinner became Caleb's highlight reel. He'd switch jobs 3 times in 2 years, somehow failing upwards each time. My parents called it ambitious. When I dared mention building experience at one company, my dad would say, "That's nice, Liam. Some people like security, I suppose." The worst part? They'd make me feel ungrateful if I ever brought it up. "You're too sensitive. We're proud of both our boys in different ways. Don't be jealous of your brother's success." I wasn't jealous. I just wanted to be seen. To be heard. The final crack came last Thanksgiving. We were all at my parents' house, me, Caleb, his new girlfriend, Chloe, some influencer with a 3-word name, and our parents. I just wrapped a massive product launch at work, months of planning, landed us a new client. I was proud. Genuinely proud. So, I mentioned it at dinner, casually, hoping for something, anything, other than silence. Instead, Caleb put down his fork. "Wow," he drawled, "so you finally did something impressive at that little desk job of yours." He laughed. Chloe laughed. I looked at my parents, expecting, I don't know, a scold? That wasn't nice, Caleb? My mom just reached for the wine. "Oh, he's just teasing." My dad gave me this half smile. "Well, maybe now you'll get that raise you've been hoping for." I didn't say another word that dinner. Couldn't. Something inside me just snapped. It was like 20 years flashed before my eyes. All the times I stayed quiet, played it safe, let them walk all over me, convincing myself I was taking the high road. That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling, a weird mix of anger and shame swirling inside. I wasn't even mad at Caleb, not really. He was who he was. I was mad at myself for allowing it. For shrinking myself so they'd be comfortable. For thinking if I just worked hard enough, they'd eventually respect me. 2 weeks later, an offer landed in my inbox, a director-level position at a competitor. Higher pay, better title, more autonomy. I hadn't even applied. They'd heard about my launch, reached out. For the first time in years, I didn't hesitate. I said yes. The next morning, I walked into my boss's office to give my 2 weeks' notice. He was a decent guy, but used to people sticking around for scraps. When I told him, he actually laughed. "You'll regret this," he said, leaning back. "You'll never find something better." I didn't respond. Just smiled, shook his hand, and walked out. The real story began a few months later, after the dust settled. When I started showing up at industry events with a title that turned heads. When people who'd ignored my emails were now asking for coffee. I felt like I'd stepped into an alternate version of my life, one where I was finally allowed to take up space. Then, the invite, a tech conference. Big-name speakers, networking dinners. I was scheduled to speak on a panel about product innovation. A huge opportunity. I was prepping in the green room when I saw the attendee list. My old company was sending people, and my old boss was on it. But what I didn't know yet, what would truly flip everything upside down, was that someone else from my family would be there, too. Someone who had no idea I'd be attending, and who was about to learn just how much my life had changed. That's when everything truly started to unravel. But before the conference, before the confrontation, before the satisfying climax, there was one last dinner. And at that dinner, someone crossed a line they could never uncross. 2 weeks before the conference, I flew home for my mom's birthday. I almost didn't. Things had been weird since Thanksgiving, and I hadn't exactly been in touch. But she called, said she missed me, wanted the whole family together. No drama, she promised, just dinner, Liam. I should have known better. The moment I walked in, it was like I'd stepped back into the role they'd assigned me years ago, quiet Liam, the afterthought. Caleb and Chloe were already there, scrolling through photos on her phone. My dad was pouring drinks, my mom fussing over the table. I brought flowers. No one noticed. Dinner started with champagne. Caleb had just closed on a condo, apparently. I don't know how, he'd switched jobs again, and I was pretty sure he was still bouncing between marketing gigs like seasonal hobbies. But there he was, bragging about the historic district, getting in early, how his boss, 2 years younger than me, by the way, called him the most visionary hire. My parents were glowing. My mom kept touching his shoulder like he'd just cured cancer. My dad raised his glass to Caleb, the pride of the family. I didn't even touch mine. Halfway through the meal, Caleb turned to me with a smirk. "So, Liam, how's the little analyst job going?" I paused. "I don't work there anymore." That got their attention. My mom looked up, fork halfway to her mouth. "What? When did that happen?" 3 months ago. I took a director role at Silverpoint Tech. I'm heading a new product division. Silence. Silverpoint, for context, was the rising star in the industry and the biggest threat to my old firm. My dad blinked. Caleb looked like I'd spoken in another language. My mom's voice was clipped. "You didn't tell us." "No," I said, "I didn't." "Well, congratulations," she said, but the tone was all wrong. Polite, flat, like I'd announced I'd won a scratch-off ticket, not landed a career-changing job. Caleb snorted into his glass. "Director," he dragged the word out. "Wow, Didn't know you were into titles now. Next thing, you'll tell us you've got a private jet. I smiled thinly. Not yet, but I do fly business class now. It was petty, I'll admit. Felt good for about 5 seconds. Then my mom cut in. You know, Liam, that's not really appropriate. No need to make this into a competition. Caleb's worked very hard, too. I stared at her. I didn't say he hadn't, but the mood had shifted. My dad was already changing the subject, asking Chloe about her brand partnerships. Caleb went right back into brag mode, vaulted ceilings, artisan butchers, wine co-op. I excused myself to the kitchen to help clear plates. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to breathe. And that's when I saw it. On the fridge, held by a novelty magnet, was a printed invitation, a formal one to the Tech Lead Summit in San Diego. With Caleb's name on it. I stared at it for a long time. Not because he was going, but because I recognized the invitation. I'd received the exact same one. Same font, same logo, same colors. Only my name was listed as a speaker. Caleb's was listed under guest. That's when I realized he was going to my conference. I took a photo of it when no one was looking, just in case. The rest of the night blurred. I barely spoke. Every time Caleb laughed, it grated on my nerves. Every time my parents leaned toward him with that warm, indulgent look they never gave me, it chipped away at something inside. But I stayed quiet, because that's what I'd always done. Until the next morning. I woke early, packed my things, and came downstairs to find my mom making coffee. She didn't say good morning. Just, are you really not staying for brunch? I have a meeting tomorrow, I said. I need to prep. She nodded, then looked at me over the rim of her mug. Liam, I hope you're not holding a grudge about last night. Your brother's just excitable. I'm not mad about last night. Good. I'm mad that you keep pretending like it's nothing. She blinked. Excuse me? Caleb belittles me every time I'm here. You let him. Dad lets him. You call it teasing, but it's not. He talks to me like I'm a joke, and you act like I should be flattered. She didn't answer. You know I'm speaking at the Tech Lead Summit? I said. Did you even look at the email I sent a few weeks ago? I don't remember getting an email. I laughed. I sent it to the family group. You replied with a thumbs up. Her lips pressed together. I saw the invite on your fridge, I added. He's going. Caleb's going. And you never even said congratulations to me. He was invited by his company, she said quietly. He's attending. I'm speaking. But sure, let's act like we're equals. Liam, no, Mom. I'm tired of this. I worked my tail off to get where I am. No one handed it to me. And I'm done pretending that your silence doesn't hurt. There was a long pause. Then she said, You've always been so sensitive. And just like that, I knew I was done. I left without saying goodbye to Caleb or my dad. Over the next 2 weeks, I focused on the summit. My panel was slotted right before the keynote, high visibility. I was nervous, but excited. It felt like everything I'd worked for was finally coming together. My boss hinted that if it went well, I might get a larger team, maybe even a full department. 2 days before the conference, a LinkedIn notification, Caleb Whitmore has updated his profile. I clicked out of habit and froze. He'd added a new line under Speaking Engagements, Panelist, Tech Lead Summit 2025, San Diego. I read it 3 times. Then checked the schedule. His name wasn't there. I called my contact at the summit committee, Olivia, someone I had a good rapport with. Has the speaker list changed? Nope, she said. You're still the only Whitmore on stage. What? No reason, I said, just making sure. I sat in silence for a long time. I knew exactly what was happening. Caleb was going to show up, pretend to be a speaker, work the room, use my panel as a platform to network, probably even drop our last name in conversations as if he were me. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. Not out of fear, but something sharper. Rage. Years of being ignored, minimized. Dismissed. Years of being told I was too sensitive, too quiet, too safe. And now my brother was using my name, my success, as his ticket into a world I had bled to reach. The worst part? I was pretty sure my parents knew. And they'd encouraged it. Because in their eyes, it didn't matter which son was on stage, as long as it reflected well on them. The morning of the conference, I flew in early, checked into the hotel, ironed my suit, went over my talking points. And then, I waited. Because I had a plan. And when Caleb arrived, grinning, confident, wearing a badge that didn't belong to him, I was ready. I didn't confront Caleb the moment he arrived at the summit. I wanted to, but I didn't. Something in me had changed. Years ago, I would have cornered him, demanded answers, maybe even walked away before the panel out of sheer frustration. But I wasn't that person anymore. Instead, I watched. He walked in, navy blazer a size too tight, slicked back hair, his signature smirk. Chloe trailed behind, snapping selfies in front of every sponsor banner. Caleb's badge hung confidently from a blue lanyard. I knew instantly it wasn't his. The name said Julian Moore, but the picture had been replaced. Poor Julian, whoever he was, probably had no idea his face had been torn off a badge by someone who considered Photoshop a personality trait. Caleb spotted me across the exhibit floor. He waved like we were old pals. I gave a slight nod and turned back to my conversation. He didn't approach. Not yet. The hours leading up to my panel passed in a blur. I met other speakers, went over logistics, double-checked my slides. Everyone was buzzing about the audience size, 400 people in the room, plus a live stream to thousands. It was a career-changing opportunity. Yet, my stomach was in knots. Not from nerves. Well, not entirely. It was the knowledge that Caleb was out there, somewhere, pretending to be part of something he hadn't earned. And worse, that my own family probably saw nothing wrong with it. I gave my talk. I nailed it. I spoke about innovation cycles, cross-functional collaboration, scaling niche products. But I also told a story, my story. I didn't name names, but I talked about working in a place where I was underestimated. About the pressure of being the quiet one in a family of loud voices. About learning to find power in stillness, value in substance over noise. People applauded. A few even stood. I stepped off that stage feeling like I had just shed the last layer of the skin I used to wear, the version of me who stayed quiet, who waited to be noticed, who sought approval from people who never planned to give it. Then came the moment I hadn't planned for. I was at the networking mixer later that evening, sipping club soda, talking to a recruiter from a massive firm, when Caleb slithered up beside me. "There he is," he said, clapping a hand on my back like we were teammates. "The star of the show." I turned. "You shouldn't be here." He raised an eyebrow. "Relax. I'm just networking. Using someone else's badge." He grinned. "It's a conference, Liam. Everyone stretches the truth a little." "That's not stretching," I said. "That's fraud." He rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic." I stepped back. "Don't follow me around. Don't attach yourself to my name. And when people ask what you do, maybe try telling the truth for once." He laughed. "You really think they care? You think any of these people are going to remember the difference between us?" "I do," I said. "And I think that's enough." He opened his mouth to say something else, but I walked away. I didn't see him for the rest of the evening. And then, just like that, it was over. I flew home the next morning, returned to my routine, my job, my team, my goals. But something felt off. At first, it was subtle. A sudden quiet from my parents. Calls unanswered. Messages that got polite, one-word replies. Then the silence turned into something louder. One Saturday, I opened Facebook and saw a photo my mom had posted. Caleb, standing on a stage at what looked like a small community tech event. The caption, "So proud of our son for sharing his insights as a keynote speaker this weekend. A rising star." I didn't comment. Didn't like it. Instead, I messaged her privately. "Why are you pretending Caleb is some industry expert?" She replied, "He's doing amazing things, Liam. You should be happy for him." I asked, "Are you ever going to be proud of me?" No reply. That was the moment I truly hit bottom. Not because of Caleb. Not because of some lie he told on a fake badge. But because I realized the thing I'd been chasing my whole life, validation from my family, was never going to come. They had chosen who they wanted to believe in. And it wasn't me. I didn't leave my apartment that weekend. I sat with the weight of it, the finality of knowing that no matter how far I climbed, no matter what I accomplished, I would always be the footnote in someone else's story to them. I felt hollow, like my success didn't count if they didn't care. But somewhere in that silence, something else began to form. A new question: what if their pride wasn't the point anymore? What if I stopped measuring myself with a ruler they never meant to hand me in the first place? On Monday, I walked into the office early. My manager caught me in the hallway, smiling. "That panel was phenomenal, Liam. I've been hearing about it nonstop." "Thanks. We've been talking upstairs," she continued. "We want to expand the pilot project you've been leading. Double the scope, full team under you." I blinked. "Really? Really? You've proven yourself." For once, I didn't doubt it. I didn't ask, "Are you sure?" or "Do you think I'm ready?" I just nodded and said, "I'd love to." And I meant it. The next few months were a blur of progress. I hired new staff, held strategy meetings, led initiatives that got noticed by upper leadership. The internal newsletter featured our project 3 times in 2 months. Recruiters started messaging me weekly. I felt unstoppable. More than that, I felt seen. Not by my parents, not by Caleb, but by the people who mattered now, my team, my peers, the colleagues who had watched me rise from quiet analyst to director with a voice. I started mentoring junior employees. I spoke at 2 more conferences. I was invited onto a podcast. Slowly, the hollow part inside me started to fill. Not with validation, but with clarity. I realized I didn't need revenge to feel whole. But that didn't mean I wasn't going to get it. Just when I thought I had moved on, a package arrived at my office. No return address. Inside was a glossy brochure, Caleb's new consulting firm. Stock photo headshot, exaggerated achievements, and my favorite part, a quote, "Helping clients unlock innovation through real industry experience." He had listed the Tech Lead Summit under his credentials again, only this time he claimed he was a featured guest speaker. I nearly laughed. But what really caught my attention was the back of the brochure, a list of companies he claimed to have collaborated with. And one of them was mine. My company. That's when I knew it was time. Not to prove anything to my parents. Not to win some imaginary competition. But to draw a line. Because Caleb had finally crossed into my world. And this time, he dragged my name with him. So I did what I do best. I started planning. Quietly. Strategically. No emotion. No confrontation, just a well-timed series of moves that would show everyone, not just Caleb, but the people he was trying to impress, exactly what happened when you build your success on someone else's shoulders. I wasn't looking for payback anymore. I was looking for truth. And the truth was about to come out. I stared at that glossy brochure like it was a mirror into the past. The photo of Caleb, chin tilted up, arms crossed like some corporate messiah. The buzzwords, disruptive innovation, thought leadership, scaling frameworks, words I use daily in my line of work, now butchered into empty jargon on a mailer he probably handed out like business cards at hotels. The claims he made were bold, too bold. One line stood out: former keynote speaker at Tech Lead Summit and product strategist for Silverpoint Tech. My company. My title. My work. This wasn't some little white lie to get into a mixer. Caleb was using my career like a prop. Worse, he was using my company's name to land his so-called clients. If I did nothing, it could reflect poorly on me. It could look like I endorsed him. That was the moment I felt the shift again. Not just anger, but something colder, more focused. The difference between rage and resolve. I opened my laptop. First thing, screenshot every page of the brochure. Then, checked the website listed on the back. Of course, it was filled with half-baked blog posts, inflated testimonials, stock photos. One blog post, "The Power of Silent Leadership," was eerily familiar. Too familiar. Because it was a paraphrased version of a talk I had given at the Tech Lead Summit. He'd plagiarized me, not even subtly. I cross-referenced the timestamps. My video had gone up 2 weeks before his blog post was published. Same bullet points, same story structure, even same phrasing in places. I was done. But I wasn't going to call him out in a text or at family dinner. That never worked. No, I wanted something cleaner, smarter, something that left no room for denial, and something that, for once, he wouldn't see coming. So, I started with the legal route. I pulled in Savannah, one of the sharpest in-house counsels at Silver Point. I'd only worked with her once before, but I remembered how she dissected a licensing agreement like a surgeon. I scheduled a private meeting, laid everything out, screenshots, URLs, the brochure. She listened silently, flipping through the pages, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she looked up. "This is bad. You think he's actually gotten business out of this?" "Doesn't matter," she said. "The implication alone is risky. If he claims affiliation with us and something goes wrong with a client, our name could be pulled into it." "Exactly." She nodded slowly. "I'll draft a cease and desist, and a letter clarifying our disassociation. Do you want your name on it?" I paused. "Not yet." She gave me a knowing look. "Keeping your powder dry?" "Something like that." By the end of the day, we had a document ready, a formal cease and desist, along with a statement to be used if we had to go public. But I didn't send it. Not immediately. Because this wasn't just about stopping Caleb. It was about revealing him publicly, permanently. So, I dug deeper. I reached out to Olivia, an old contact at the Tech Lead Summit Committee, a fellow speaker and part of the planning board. I told her what was going on, showed her the brochure, the website, the doctored photos. Her reaction was instant. "Oh my God, Liam. I remember him. That guy who kept hanging around backstage." "Yep. He tried to get into the speaker dinner, didn't he?" "He did. He told the staff he was my co-presenter." She groaned. "That explains so much. I had to vouch for you because they were confused about which Whitmore was supposed to be on the list." I felt my jaw tighten. "He's using the summit name now, telling people he was a keynote speaker." "Let me guess," she said. "No credentials, no speaking slot, no record?" "None." Olivia's tone shifted. "Do you want us to issue a public correction?" I shook my head. Not yet. I need to line everything up first. And that's exactly what I did. Over the next few weeks, I built my case quietly, methodically, like laying out a chessboard. I reached out to 3 of the companies Caleb claimed to have collaborated with. Only one responded, but the answer was telling. Never heard of him, the email said. We've never worked with any consulting agency under that name. Then, by pure coincidence, or maybe karma, a former coworker of Caleb's messaged me on LinkedIn. Hey, this is random, she wrote. But I saw your name on a podcast and realized your brother used to name drop you all the time at happy hour. He claimed he trained you back when he was in product dev. Funny, huh? Funny wasn't the word I'd use. But now I had a pattern, a track record, and just enough receipts to put something bigger together. I booked another call, this time with Zara, an old grad school classmate who had gone into investigative journalism. We weren't close, but we'd always respected each other's work. She specialized in business exposés, scams, fake credentials, pyramid schemes, the works. I sent her everything. At first, she was hesitant. Is this personal, Liam? It started that way, I said. But now it's professional. He's using false affiliations to build a business. He's naming real companies, misrepresenting public events, plagiarizing intellectual property. She asked for 2 days. I gave her 4. When she called me back, she was breathless. I found more. She had uncovered a fake testimonial on Caleb's website attributed to a VP at a fintech firm that didn't exist. The photo used was a filtered LinkedIn headshot of someone else entirely, a guy named Julian Moore, who had no idea his face was being used. She also found a podcast where Caleb had apparently interviewed himself, using a voice filter to pose as a client. It would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. I want to run the story, Zara said. A light piece, nothing defamatory, just enough to raise questions. She paused. Can you time it? Time it for what? I need 3 weeks, I said. There's an event coming. There was another tech conference, smaller, more regional, but still respectable. Silver Point was sponsoring it, and I was scheduled to give the opening remarks. I had already seen Caleb's name on the RSVP list. This time, he wasn't even pretending to speak. He had listed himself as press. The audacity. So, I waited 3 weeks. During that time, I made sure everything was in place. Savannah finalized the legal documents and cleared them for release. My company's communications team wrote up a statement clarifying that Caleb Whitmore had no affiliation with Silver Point and never had. Zara sent me the draft of her article, a polished, damning piece about false branding, image manipulation, and the thin line between ambition and fraud. And finally, just to make sure, Olivia from Tech Lead emailed me the final nail, an official letter from the Tech Lead Summit stating that Caleb Whitmore had never spoken, presented, or been formally invited in any capacity beyond a guest pass. All that remained was the execution. The morning of the conference, I walked into the venue with a calm I hadn't felt in years. Caleb was already there, laughing with some vendors, holding a press badge like it was a backstage pass to success. He hadn't seen me yet. Perfect. Because by the time he did, everything was going to change. The conference hall was buzzing with that over-caffeinated energy you only get at tech events. Young founders in fitted blazers pitching ideas over stale pastries, product managers flipping through business cards like trading cards, panels running 5 minutes behind while everyone pretended that was just startup culture. I didn't mind the chaos. It worked in my favor. Caleb stood near the center of it all, confident as ever, his press badge swinging from his neck like a medal. He was talking to 2 junior reps from a mid-tier VC firm I recognized. I'd met them a month earlier at a closed-door pitch session where I'd advised them on product viability metrics. I knew they respected me. And now they were listening to my brother, the same brother who had used my credentials to build a house of cards, and who had no idea that every single card was about to come down. I could have walked up to him right then. yanked the badge from his neck, embarrassed him in front of everyone. But that wasn't my style anymore. I didn't want a scene. I wanted something quieter, deeper, permanent. The first domino fell at 10:17 a.m. That's when Zara's exposé went live, The False Genius, How One Man Faked His Way into the Tech Industry. It hit LinkedIn first, then Twitter, then Hacker News. Within 15 minutes, it was trending regionally. She had done her homework. Interviews, screenshots, audio clips from the fake podcast, even a side-by-side breakdown of Caleb's plagiarized blog post versus my Tech Lead Summit speech. She hadn't used my name, per my request, but the references were obvious enough to anyone in our circle. The article ended with a simple line, "In an industry built on innovation, credibility matters more than charisma." And sooner or later, the truth catches up. It didn't take long for the second domino to fall. At 10:32 a.m., the official Silverpoint statement went live on our company site. We are aware of individuals falsely claiming professional affiliation with Silverpoint Tech. These claims are categorically untrue. Silverpoint maintains no professional, contractual, or advisory relationship with Caleb Whitmore. I timed my opening remarks for 10:45. By the time I took the stage, half the audience was already whispering. People were looking at their phones, their faces shifting from curiosity to confusion to disbelief. A few heads turned toward Caleb, who was still planted in the crowd, blissfully unaware. I didn't call him out. I didn't have to. I delivered my speech as planned, focused, forward-thinking, sharp. I mentioned the importance of ethics and innovation, of building something real. I even referenced the value of earning trust the hard way. When I stepped down, people clapped. Not just politely, but genuinely. And that's when I saw it. Caleb standing off to the side, mouth slightly open, eyes locked on mine. I nodded at him, just once, calm, controlled. He started walking toward me, but before he reached me, he was intercepted. Two conference staff members stopped him. One was holding a printout. It was the email from the Tech Lead Summit team, the one confirming Caleb had never been a speaker. The other staffer looked stern. "Mr. Whitmore, we need to talk." I didn't stay to watch what happened next. Because I didn't need to. The trap had been set. The truth had been laid out piece by piece. All that was left now was the fallout. And oh, did it fall. By 2 p.m., Caleb's consulting site had gone offline. By 4 p.m., two of the companies he'd approached as potential clients had issued formal statements denying any association. One of them tagged the exposé in their tweet. By 6 p.m., Chloe had unfollowed him on every platform. I know because someone sent me the screenshots. Petty, maybe, but satisfying. The next day, Caleb's LinkedIn was wiped clean. Gone were the bold titles, the buzzword-laced bios. He had changed his headline to "Looking for New Opportunities." The comments beneath it were brutal, some sarcastic, some just confused. A few people tagged Zara's article and my parents. That part wasn't as public, but in a way, it cut deeper. 3 days after the article dropped, I got a call from my mom. First one in weeks. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "Liam, I don't know what to say. We didn't know it was this serious. He told us he was doing well, that you were helping him. We just wanted to believe he was finally getting his life together. I'm sorry. We're both sorry." I saved the message. I never responded. Because it wasn't about anger anymore. It was about boundaries. About not shrinking myself anymore to make space for people who refused to see me. As for Caleb, the last time I saw him was by accident. 6 months later, at a smaller tech event. He wasn't speaking. He wasn't even registered. He was manning a booth for a third-tier software reseller, wearing a tight polo shirt with someone else's logo on it. No badge, no smirk, just quiet, tired eyes. He looked up, recognized me instantly. I didn't say a word, but he stood, walked over. Liam, he said quietly, can we talk? I looked him dead in the eye. You're right, Caleb. He blinked. About what? I do have regrets. His mouth opened slightly, and I finished. I regret not cutting you off 2 years sooner. Then I walked away. No second glance, no guilt, just clarity. I built my life back brick by brick. I stopped seeking permission to be proud of myself. I stopped explaining my worth to people who only listened when it benefited them. I focused on my team, on the work, on the people who showed up. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Because vindication isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet line spoken at the right moment. Sometimes it's success without apology. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's walking away from the people who underestimated you and letting them sit in the silence they created. What would you have done?